It's interesting because I didn't know much about the nonprofit aspect of the press except from what I saw, on the website. And it wasn't really until I sat down with Jan for the first time during my interview that I got a real sense of the mission of the press. And it excited me. It excited me the prospect of doing research with this amount of material, historically relevant material, and obscure material that should be informing discussions that are happening in our culture today. The first big project that I was really put to task to was taking the press's social media platforms and devising a sort of new strategy for them, to use them not only to help marketing and publicity for the press, to get the press's name out, but also to kind of further the work of the press itself, which is to educate people about the lives and works of the authors that the press supports. Other than that, I've worked just assisting in sort of overhauling the office situation here, and just helping with reorganizing and kind of re-energizing the space here. Because she's talking very directly about the fear of poetry that exists in our culture. And technology is advancing so much today. I think that it's an important discussion that needs to happen among poets, and especially among young poets, of just how do we engage these new platforms that are always becoming like more and more visual, and content is becoming like smaller and smaller, and messages are becoming more and more brief. It's exciting because poetry, the way I see poetry, there's a natural place for it, because the role of poetry in language, I think, is that sort of crystallization and that paring down of language to its most essential message. So Werkheiser seemed to me to be informing that discussion decades before any of the contemporary challenges that poets face today started to come around, or maybe they were starting to come around then, and Werkheiser was one of the first to see it. That's just the importance that poetry plays in all social issues and in all conflicts, is the role of a poet's voice as a witness and a reporter, and crystallizing truths in events and social movements that just can't be communicated through objective reporting or subjective editorial reporting.
Well, I wanted to intern at Paris Press because of their dedication for women authors and women artists, and giving women voices and a platform that they may not otherwise have in the literary and art world. I am a feminist artist and filmmaker myself, so that's something that's very important to me, and that immediately jumped out to me in their mission statement when I was reading about them online on their website. I also am a huge fan of Virginia Woolf, and seeing that the press had published On Being Ill by Virginia Woolf, which was an essay that I had never heard about before, and that I thought was extremely interesting because I've studied disability studies in school, and illness is a topic that's very near and dear to me. So to find out that an essay like that had existed but hadn't really been put to the forefront except for now by this press was a really cool little fact about them. Initially, I helped with just a lot of the little things or the big things in keeping a nonprofit running. So I helped Jan out with the annual meeting and getting ready for that, which is basically where they just go over what the press is doing, what it's been doing, and where it wants to go. And then from there, I worked on a bunch of different film projects. I helped with a film that was based off of a book they published, Sisters, an anthology, where Jan had interviewed a bunch of women and men who had sisters or who were sisters, and we edited that into a 5-minute clip for the Ashfield Film Festival. I also worked on the Muriel Rukeyser documentary that the press is putting out, and for that I did research and I also did production, like we did some interviews. She did so much in her life, not only in terms of works that she produced as a poet and an author, but also as a social activist. She was involved in all arenas of social justice activism. She was parts of movements for race, for gender, for sexuality, for class, and I think that it's so amazing that she covered all of these topics. Not only did she write about them and raise awareness through her writing, she also participated in protests and the movements themselves. I think today, with the social and political climate that we have now and all of these social justice movements and movements for calling out and taking down systems of oppression, I think that looking to Muriel Rukeyser and her work as an activist and a poet can be very inspiring for activists, for artists, and for anyone, because she wasn't afraid to take on anything. She can definitely be someone that people today look up to in terms of combining art and activism, and also just not being afraid to voice your views.